If you think this looks a bit like the Appalachians, that's not a coincidence, because millions of years ago, these mountains and the Appalachians were part of one giant mountain range long before the Atlantic came in between them. And because the climate is also very similar, we have a lot of the same plants growing here, like the ramps that grow both here and in our backyard. Looking at American ramp recipes, I can see that a lot of them use the bulbs along with the leaves. And we don't do that here. But since they are spreading so prolifically throughout our backyard, I do dig some up every year to give them to friends who want them in their gardens. Growing up, I was taught to never waste food, but that's simply not possible with this quantity of ramps. So I use them almost daily during the season, mostly in salads or in stir-fries and soups. I also use them like spinach, and I've been wanting to ferment them, but I never actually have, so if you have experience fermenting ramps, please tell me how it went and whether you recommend it. Another thing that I do at least once a week is to make these ramps rolls. I usually make them for supper and some more for lunchboxes on the following day. Today it's Sunday, so I'm preparing them for Monday's lunchboxes, but also for the Sunday afternoon coffee break. What you see me making here is the simplest version, with all-purpose flour and instant yeast. But most of the time I use spelt flour. And I also make them with sourdough instead of yeast sometimes, but the result is more bready, chewy, and not as tender and crispy. The dough will be rising for about an hour, and that gives us some time to enjoy the beauty of spring in our backyard. I planted these apple trees 5 years ago, and they're blooming for the first time this year, which I didn't expect to happen anymore. So it's almost a miracle. The cherry tree, on the other hand, is old, and every year for some years now I've expected it to not bloom anymore, but it still does. And this year we're lucky because the blooms didn't freeze off, which they do in many years. Let me talk a bit about the choice between sourdough and yeast. I bake with sourdough a lot, especially when I bake bread. But I think there's a reason why traditionally both sourdough and yeast have been used. You can make many baked goods both with sourdough and with yeast, one or the other, but the result won't be exactly the same. And as much as I appreciate sourdough and like to use it, for some things I just prefer the results that I get when I use yeast. Also, baking is not just something I enjoy doing, but it's also a daily household work that I do. And I need to get it done, and sometimes it's just quicker with yeast, especially with instant yeast. I think in the kitchen there always has to be a balance between what is ideal for health, for cultural authenticity, but also for time management with a family and possibly with a job, because I'm not a stay-at-home mom, but I still cook and bake from scratch almost all of the time. And that's why for quick meals I really like to use instant yeast. So let's get back to the ramp rolls. Ramps contain a lot of water, and that means that the dough needs to be fairly dry, and the filling adds a lot of water. So it may in fact not be possible to make those swirls like you do with cinnamon rolls. I find that varies from day to day. It probably depends on how much rain there has been that has filled the ramps with even more water. So this time it's no swirls, it's just bread rolls that are filled with ramps and cream teas. If any of you are wondering what became of the little jumper that you saw me knitting in the apple loaf with maple glaze video, you probably aren't wondering, but if you are, this is the result, and I think it's really cute, and I'll try to make myself a similar one. To be honest, I've never had the patience to finish something in my own size, but I'll try just once more. The afternoon coffee break really is a thing here, but on weekdays that just means sitting down for a cup of coffee and maybe a cookie or even some fruit. But on weekends there will usually be some simple coffee cake or sweet bread. It's usually something sweet, not savoury, but since I made these rolls anyway, we are having them today. If you try this recipe, please let me know how it turned out in the comments. I'd be delighted to have you back here on my next video at the cottage table. See you then. Bye.